Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. We are here to discuss what happens before a war, not during. Before a war, one of the first things is human rights. After World War II, the international community made a promise. 1948, the UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, offering rights and promising them to everyone. I have a few short articles of a few of the rights, just Articles 2, 23, 14, and 19. There are 30 articles in total, and every single one of them are important. For the last bit, talks of human rights have picked up because people are becoming more aware of the violations to them. Everyone should have equal rights, but we have to now discuss, are our rights being respected currently, or are they being eroded with time?
So, women's rights. As you may notice, there are a few examples here. There are many more out in the world, but that would take a pretty long time to go through. So, human rights, there are groups of people. There are rights for men, women, everyone in between, if you will. So I'm going to be specifying on women's rights here. So in 2021, Afghanistan moment, the Taliban returned, which led also to women being restricted from a lot of their rights, including being barred from universities or certain jobs. So that just completely eradicated so much progress over just so little time. Iran, in 2022, the death of Mahsa Amini, who was arrested for incorrectly wearing a hijab, which led to protests over hijabs and a lot of gender discrimination. In the USA, for 2022, the Roe versus Wade, which was a court case in 1973 regarding abortion rights, was reversed, which led to many states banning the ability for women to get abortions. And also, side note, studies found that during that time, within women who could not get abortions, they found it was tied to a 10% increase of mental distress in females over just 3 months. So Sudan as well, 2023 to present time actually. So in Sudan and other conflict zones, civil war and instability has led to widespread cases of sexual violence towards women and young girls, which many cases are being left underreported and underpunished as well. And within all of these examples, and again, many others, it is found that women's rights are becoming less and less in places, and this is, by question, threatening the Declaration of Human Rights promise of equality.
The next topic we'd like to bring up is LGBTQ plus rights. LGBTQ plus rights are under renewed assault after years of people working to get them as a community more accepted. We spent so long on this, and currently rights are being taken away really quickly from LGBTQ plus people. I have a few examples. In Uganda, the 2023 Anti-Homosexuality Act, harsh penalties including death. In Russia, gray propaganda laws have been expanded, restricting expression and visibility of LGBTQ plus people. In the US, more than 500 anti-LGBTQ plus bills were introduced, mainly targeting trans youth and denying their access to health care. in parts of Poland and Hungary have LGBT-free zones and official sanction of anti-LGBTQ plus propaganda. This is not simply discrimination. It's a regression from the principle of equal rights for everyone that the UDHR enshrined.
Next, we have the freedom of expression. Freedom of expression, otherwise known as the free speech, is a huge part of human rights and democracy and other things, and yet it is found that it is being an ignored right in many places. So, as well, in various places, there have been cases of reporters and journalists being detained, intimidated, even censored for speaking the truth about events. So what I'm going to go through here is a few options or examples in the UK where raids on journalists have been happening, often using the Terrorism Act as an excuse, which, for those who might not know, it is when someone is suspected as a terrorist and put on trial, their human rights are just discarded, just forgotten. So Kit Clarenberg, he was a Palestine supporter, and he was detained and questioned for 5 hours on his political views because he was a supporter. Issa Winstanley was a Palestine supporter whose house was raided and his devices were taken due to his writing bringing suspicion of encouraging acts of terrorism. And another one, Eve Engler, they were attacked for calling an Israel supporter a genocider and a fascist on social media. And so notice how in cases of human rights being just, well, freedom of expression to be specific, it happens to be a lot of the time people who say they support the right of speech who will often seem to silence others for what they are. Another example is in Austria and places around that where targeting of journalists is happening. It's happening very regularly over the world.
So now we'll be focusing more on Canada's bubble zone laws. These restrict protests near vulnerable institutions. There are many different opinions on these things I'll be discussing. In May 2025, Toronto City Council approved the bylaw creating a 50-meter bubble around the places of worship, schools, childcare centers, which became effective in July 2nd.
An important thing is that the vulnerable institution can apply to have the buffer zone. There is no requirement under the final version for the institution to show it was previously the target of a protest. Civil liberties groups warn the bylaw prohibits legal free expression on public property within the restricted zone and is likely an unconstitutional infringement on rights of assembly and expression.
Critics say, although the bylaw is framed as protecting access to worships, areas, and schools and childcare, when it becomes in effect, it can silence unpopular protest voices, especially minority or dissenting groups. For example, Palestinian demonstrations increasing in 2023 to 2024. Some of the boosts for these bylaws come from local tensions over protests outside synagogues and places of worship. But the broad language of the bylaws means they could be applied more widely, chilling dissent rather than targeting actual threats.
In short, while the rationale is public safety, the risk is selective enforcement, suppression of protest, and a narrowing of our democratic space.
Okay, bear with me. I'm about to talk for a long time, so I'm really nervous. Okay, so the next topic we'll be talking about is Gaza. In my opinion, it is one of the most severe current human rights violations. There have been thousands dead of innocent kids, families, mothers, doctors, journalists, and for what? Our government especially has been contributing to these deaths. In the past 2 years, several human rights have been taken away, like freedom of expression and assembly. Journalists have been targeted, like Al Jazeera or freelance journalists. With my data, more than 240 plus journalists have been killed, with 400 injured, which is more than both World War I and World War II. The right to food and water has also been violated, with humanitarian aid being stopped by Israel at the borders. This starving thousands that don't have any other food source than humanitarian aid. The right to education has also been violated, with schools being obliterated. Life in Gaza is just not livable, and the things that I've stated is just a mere summary of what's going on. Much more goes on, even if it's only been more than 2 years. Things like imprisonment, hostages, blockades, flying drones, etc. have all also been happening for more than 2 years. The big problem is that Canada continues to have a free trade agreement with Israel. They export military-related materials despite the obvious cruelty that's happening. Various reports by groups like Arms Embargo show that Canada-made components being used in systems that are causing the violations. If Canada supports trade, arm flows, and strategic relations with a state engaged in what many international observers identify as genocide, how believable is it to claim that Canada defends human rights globally? Now, I'll be relating this to another topic, which is the intervention of Canada and NATO in Libya. In 2011, NATO and Canada claimed that they had humanitarian motives to intervene in Libya to protect civilians from the regime's crackdowns. This claim was sadly not fulfilled. Continuous human rights abuses and region-wide violence was ongoing. Canada failing to follow through with what was said undermines the claim. If strategic interests override claims, a question should be asked. Hold on, I have to flip the page. A question should be asked, are such interventions truly about protecting people, or is it about projecting power? Canada's participation in Libya also raises a deeper question. When we speak of human rights defense, are we consistent, are we impartial, or are we conditional?
To sum this up, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights set a good standard and a point to move forward from. We need to face the threats that are against human rights currently before we can move forward. We have to defend our right to protest, press freedom, freedom of expression, LGBTQ+ rights, and the most important, protection from genocide. Canada is not exempt from human rights violations. Journalists are detained, protest coverage is suppressed, governments trade freely with states accused of genocide. It is up to us citizens to stand up, speak out, and hold our governments accountable. We need to defend rights not only when it's convenient, but before larger problems arise. Thank you.